6.4 notes changes. I'm just gonna be going through them pretty quick. So E no longer stops dashes. That's pretty good. I don't think that it should have been stopping dashes anyway. It was always kind of like a pain point to play against. Q stacks now fall off one at a time as opposed to falling off all at once. So they actually gave it an extra second of duration. So this is going to make Ashe a lot better. Plus Runan's Hurricane is really good right now. Caitlyn E cooldown lowered. W headshot bonus changed from percentage to a flat bonus. And I think it says they increased headshot damage on trap targets. So I think that they buffed it a little bit when they did the calculation. So she's probably going to be hitting for a little bit more now. This might incentivize leveling trap first or second. And you're not really punished for not putting points into E. I could still see maybe putting 1 or 2 points into E, and that'd be fine. But you don't really need to. You can just keep it at 1. Ezreal nerf on his ultimate. This is good because you could just poke really well with Ezreal already, and for him having such a high ability to poke with his Q, I think it was kind of warranted that they nerfed his ultimate cooldown. This isn't the only nerf that's going to affect Ezreal though, because in the items they have Iceborne Gauntlet nerf on the AoE, and then there's also Mirror Mana nerf. Or if you want to look at it, it's a utility buff. We'll talk about that later. W cooldown up on Fiora. E cooldown is down, but starts after the attack's finished. This is to stop people from priming her E, like going in at the end of E's duration and then having it up again as soon as you're scrapping someone. So W cooldown is getting straight nerfed. I think that's good because they don't want to hit the actual spell itself. So hitting the cooldown is a good way to gate that. Gangplank, I think these changes are warranted. They're lowering his gold generation on Parley. So when he EQs a whole minion wave, he's going to get less gold. That's really important for his scaling. They took off some arbitrary maximum number of barrels increase on his ultimate. It was on the passive portion. It shouldn't have really been there anyway. And they're just hurting his barrel generation, so he's not going to be able to stack so many of them. It's going to reduce his AoE potential in fights. And he's going to be more ult reliant now. Illaoi is a bug fix, not really important. Jhin is getting straight buffed, 5% movement speed change. Swifties are getting 5 movement speed nerf this patch, so if you played Jhin with Swifties in the last patch, it'll be the exact same as before. He's also getting some health regen and health regen per level. And also, he's able to mini crit structures now, which is going to be pretty nice. Because when you're playing Jhin, he didn't really feel that great when he's taking towers because his attack speed is gated. So yeah, I think it'll feel really nice because he's got high potential amounts of attack damage. He'll just chunk through turrets a little faster. Marks will no longer fall off while Jhin is casting Deadly Flourish. That's pretty important. That seems like a bug that they fixed. Now it applies Deadly Flourish's mark to all champions it slows or damages, not just ones present when it triggers. So that is okay, kind of relevant. Curtain Call is now considered single target versus champions. Some people that were using Deathfire Touch on Jhin were complaining. I actually think Thunderlord's Jhin is the way to go, but you're free to do what you want. So Q damage no longer falls off, detonation ratio up. So this is just to kind of address the shitty spot they've left Katarina in ever since the meta shifted against her. She deals like ridiculously dumb lowered amount of damage. Like the Q cooldown, or I mean not the cooldown, the Q tooltip should be pretty simple. So I think they're like trying to take away unnecessary complexity in the game and they probably decided that it wasn't going to hurt the game to give her a little bit of damage. Her play rate is way lower than it should be, probably. Attack speed is down on Kog'Maw. I haven't played against him on this patch, so hopefully this is enough to make him not pick or ban. Lucian ultimate range nerf. This is pretty good because when you're playing against Lucian and he gets a few Qs on you through the minion wave, he can just kind of force you off tower with the cooling. And if you stand there, you die, and if you don't stand there, then you miss CS. So there's kind of like no way to win against that. So they're like lowering his counterplay, making him commit harder if he wants to deal damage. It'll also make it more important to land your W before you use your ultimate, since the bullets actually individually proc for Ardent Blaze's movement speed. Health regen and E damage down. Malphite has just been creeping up and creeping up and creeping up, and he's just been ridiculously solid at all levels of play. No pun intended for the Rock. Um. So yeah, hopefully this will make top lane a little bit more diverse, because right now there's only certain champions that are like playable. Like always, but that's the way top lane is. E works on an ammo system now. I haven't been able to see these changes. I'm expecting it to be a straight buff, except for the slow duration. They nerfed the slow duration because you're gonna have better access to it on his Electro Harpoon. If Rumble overheats using Electro Harpoon, he'll always be able to fire while silenced as long as he has one charge. Same as live. Okay. Q damage is up on Ryze. Hopefully they don't keep packing on buffs for Ryze, because I think it's fine to leave him in the dumpster. There's a lot of problems with him design-wise, so he just needs another rework. I'm really not sure why they're trying to push Jungle Shen, but there you go. EFX monsters. W bounces now crit. With so much of the overhaul to marksman itemization focused on crits, utility carries like Sivir have felt underwhelmed by the choices presented. If Ricochet's primary attack is a critical strike, all of that attack's bounces will crit as well. I wonder what synergy this will have with Runins, and if you get extra crits off of the bounces off the Runins. I'm not sure. I didn't actually know this is in this patch. So they are nerfing Tom again. His Q width is down, and R has a brief delay before recast. It takes the same amount of time to travel. So they're just like nerfing his ult utility a little bit, because so often he would just cast R and then like instantly cast it. Nobody would have a chance to jump in his mouth because he's so good at soloing people. You just play Tom, the one-man army, and go by yourself. W and R on Udyr nerfed by 20. So Udyr's first and second clear are not going to be really hurt based on the scaling of these changes. Max rank though, he's going to deal less damage. I think this is pretty good. And Runic Echoes is also getting nerfed, like 3% movement speed, and Swifties is getting 5% movement speed. So those will all help to keep him in balance. This is a Victor nerf. This is mainly targeted at competitive play because he's just so good at clearing waves. And he's been a staple pick for a long time. And Xin Zhao nerf. Apparently, their last set of changes were aimed at cutting out his hybrid build where he's like building Ginsus and just soloing everyone. So they're nerfing Sated and Rage Blades in specifically by lowering his heal ratio on W. And they're also lowering the attack speed on W. So I'm not sure where this is going to put Xin. He'll be a lot weaker. He probably won't be played as much. Also, Boots of Swiftness is something that he relied on, and that's getting nerfed. Maybe he'll be back to Merc Dreads. Who knows? These boots just haven't been relevant for such a long time. 30% tenacity is actually decent for tanks, and I think they'll start picking it up again. Mana Immune, this change is because people were using only Tier, because Tier has better mana generation. Like, Tier will fill itself faster than Mana Immune will fill itself. And, like, they didn't like that thematically, so now it gains 1 mana every 8 seconds on Mana Immune, so you don't have a reason to not upgrade. Mirror Mana is no longer a toggle, and it now always consumes mana to deal damage, but only when fighting champions. So you're not going to be able to use your Mirror Mana on minion waves to clear them out. So that's one way that it's nerfed. Although I don't think that that's really that big of a deal. I think that it's nice that it doesn't work on minions because most of the time when you're toggling, you're trying to toggle it on for champions and toggle it off on the minions. Now you don't really have to worry about that, so I think it's like a neutral change. Single target spells or basic attacks on champions consume 3% of your current mana and deal twice that as bonus physical damage. This effect only occurs when you have more than 20% maximum mana. So this might make it so that you have to have 2 mana items at least if you're a mirror mana user. Otherwise it might turn you off of that item. And here's the movement speed nerf for Runic Echo's enchantment. I think they wanted to keep the damage the same because it's not gonna affect. I think the most thing that they wanted to nerf is the movement speed, and they wanted to keep it relevant for pure AP champions that don't want the movement speed as much. Size lowered, but gets larger with armor. So if you're getting Iceborne Gauntlet, you're not gonna be able to get some massive AoE slow off of it just because the item is OP. Base size is now 180 from 190. I mean, it seems almost like it's gonna be a buff if it gets bigger than what it could have been, but it's losing 10 right off the base. Yeah. They're like listing this change as if it didn't already exist. And here they are showing the old ratio to the new ratio. So this doesn't really make much sense to me. None of their patch notes ever make sense. That's why I cover them. But based on my understanding, this will be slightly nerfed as a first item, and it'll be pretty much the same when you have like a couple items or full items. Steric's gauge build path and health lowered. Oh no, build path changed and health lowered is what I meant. So this is gonna change mostly for like bruisers. I think most of the carries that build Steric's gauge will still probably build it. And the build path got a little bit easier for them to absorb, so I don't think this is the right way to nerf the item. I think they should have left it as is and increased the cost, to be honest, but it is what it is. Titanic, Hydra, and Ravenous Hydra, you can no longer swap them in the shop. New Warlord's Bloodlust now increases attacks on champions, gain increasingly more lifesteal based on your missing health up to 20%, and half of this effect versus minions, meaning up to 10%. I don't think it's going to be a good master. I think it's going to need I think it's gonna need a buff before people use it. That's what I think. Expose weakness. This does not work on yourself. This does not work on auto attacks. They might change the tooltip to match the in-game, or they might change the in-game to match the tooltip. So we'll have to see what they're gonna do, because it's not damaging enemy champions. Its abilities cause them to take 3% increased damage from your allies, and this does not include yourself either. Greater Merkwolf, instead of having the vision be based on like an arbitrary point in the middle of the map, like straight through mid lane, I think smiting the wolf in the river sends it to the opposing jungle. They want to satisfy the interaction, but not make it like necessary or something. I'm just getting that they weren't happy with it in whatever context it was being used. Maybe it was too easy before. So this is gonna make it so it's not really used that much. They might as well have just removed the whole interaction, in my opinion, but that's right for you. This is to change the first wave of minions getting to lane. In pro play specifically, they're starting to bump into them on the way to lane so that the enemy wave would push. And this is just making it so that they can perma-freeze from level 1, and it's making it really hard. Not only for spectators, but for the pros themselves. Because you either have to lane swap and do this yourself, or you're at a disadvantage. So I think what the only other thing you could do is walk down your own lane and like try and match them with the strategy, but even then it's not guaranteed to work. So they just made it so the first wave of minions ignores unit collision. This is interesting because blocking minions has kind of been in the game for a long time. Nobody really paid attention to it. Every once in a while there's like hidden things like this that come out people didn't realize existed. It wasn't really that useful though. In the very top echelon of play though, it's useful. That's why it's being changed. Dominion is removed. New champion select changes. They're just making it so that you can see champions now, which is the most important part of these changes, and I'm not going to read the rest of that. Bug fixes, going to skip that. Okay. I think that's everything.